Hi, my name is Emily Moore. These are my note cards. Imagine this. One of your family members is raped and killed by a 19-year-old. Now, then imagine they are tried in court, but they are not given the death penalty just because they are an adolescent. How does that make you feel? Today, I'm going to be talking to you about the death penalty, more specifically as it pertains to adolescents. I'm defining adolescence as anyone under the age of 21. I hope to persuade you to see that adolescents should be given the death penalty. In terms of our lives, we are adolescents. I hope you never have to, but we might experience a situation very similar to this. For this reason, I'm here to explain to you why the death penalty should be implemented for adolescents. If you commit a crime, you should have to pay the price no matter the age. If you're old enough to murder someone, you should be prepared for the consequences. First, I would like to demonstrate to you more about justice in the death penalty. According to the book Death Penalty, For and Against, Louis P. Podgman stated that there's evidence in the Bible that says that people should be punished for the wrong that they do. He also supports the death penalty by speaking about the eye for an eye, or the golden rule that was used a lot in ancient civilizations. Moreover, he says that if someone kills in cold blood, they should be sentenced to death. George Bratcher, a district attorney from California, also supported this in a quote from 2019. The paramount goal of sentencing is the imposition of justice. Sometimes justice is dismissing a charge, or granting a pre-bargain, expunging a past convict, or seeking a prison sentence, or, in a very few cases, for the worst of the worst murderers, justice is death. Another district attorney, Anne Marie Schubert, said in 2016, "In our experience, survivors want justice for the murderers of their family members. Repealing the death penalty will not heal these wounds. It will leave them permanently open." So you can see that the death penalty is needed to fulfill justice in our society. Next, I want to explain to you how age should not matter when committing appalling crimes. I want to share with you an excerpt from hennyonline.org. James C. Anders says, "Many people approach the issue of capital punishment for juveniles with a certain amount of conceptual confusion. The term killing children is appropriate for Little League baseball players, but it is completely out of place when applied to adolescents who murder, rape, and brutally mutilate their victims' bodies." He later goes on to say, "Nothing in modern psychology or ordinary human experience allows us to generalize about maturity and responsibility, or lack of it, in juveniles, regardless of their age or circumstance." To break this down a little bit, Anders is basically saying that no matter how old or young you are, if you commit an intense or brutal crime, you should be held accountable. If you're old enough to murder, you should have to face the consequences. Some people will still disagree, so next I will be disputing some counter-arguments. In an article in 2012 by NPR, Lawrence Steinberg, an adolescent brain development expert, stated that adult guidance makes a big difference in brain development. Adults have a huge part in this because self-control is still developing at this age. An example of this is given in the Lancet editorial in 2004. 17-year-old Christopher Simmons was sentenced to lethal injection for his crimes, but let's take a look into his family life. Christopher's parents were divorced and hostile towards one another. Christopher's stepfather physically abused him and forced him to consume alcohol. By age 13, Christopher was abusing marijuana and alcohol. I'd like to dispute this using the ideals of James C. Anders. If someone is old enough to commit a crime, then they should be old enough to pay the consequence no matter their age. Next, Some people might think that the death penalty is cruel and unusual punishment for juveniles because of their age and lack of brain development. To this, I would like to simply say that death is a cruel and unusual matter. If one has the capacity to kill, they should be able to be properly sentenced for their actions. To review, I hope you understand why the death penalty should be implemented for adolescents. First, I spoke about how the death penalty is a just punishment for people who commit terrible crimes, and this is even supported by ancient civilizations and the Bible. Next, I explained how age is but a number. When individuals have the capacity to commit murder, they should have the capacity to be punished in a way that suits the crime. Lastly, I disputed claims about cruel and unusual punishment and lack of brain development. One last time, I want you to consider something. Imagine that your family member, your loved one, has been killed by a young adolescent offender. Now, I also want you to imagine that that same exact thing happened to your best friend's loved one, but this is a 30-year-old offender. She's getting justice because her offender's on death row, yet you are left feeling unresolved. The offenders committed the same exact crimes, yet had different sentences, all because one was an adolescent. If you do the crime, you should be prepared to do the time, no matter your age.